All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I have a repeat guest. I guess it's been maybe a year, maybe just a little bit more since you were last on the show.
Yeah,
It
but yeah.
seems like a million years ago because time does not exist anymore in this strange world we live in. But I'm here on the internet with Sean Burns, who part of the reason I wanted to get you on the show is like you're making cool music. I want to talk to you about the music you're making. But the other reason is because over the course of the pandemic, I've been doing 2 of these a week and talking to a lot of different people with a lot of different experiences being musicians in a pandemic. And in many cases, people are getting stuck. Like they're not able to release new music. They're not sure what to do, how to do it. And you seem to have the opposite problem in that over this past year and a bit, you've released just this massive amount of music among other projects as well. So what has sort of been keeping you going throughout this bizarre time we're all in?
I think it's the same. There's definitely other people in the same boat as me,
Sure.
in that we're used to being away for so long and so often, so maybe I'm gone like 4 to 6 months of the year. I'm not here. And so you have ideas that you want, things you want to accomplish. And that's kind of what I've done the last year, is to tackle these projects that, is something that we've always talked about doing and kind of finally have the time to do it,
Okay.
So that's the big difference here.
So it obviously hasn't stifled your creativity. Yep.
No, man. Yeah. No, I mean, like I'm trying hard to like, I feel like I need something to do all the time, and being on tour so often is like such a great distraction. There's something every day. And so at first I think, like a lot of us, I mean, you're like, what the hell's going on? How long is it going to be like this? Am I stuck?
Of course,
like
yeah.
this? And there's no, I've, kind of take my cue from a lot of people that I admire. They're just like, they just feel it, like they have to do something. They're compelled to be creative. And like, here I am, I might as well, do it, put my best foot forward, put something out, something
Yeah.
tangible, that's more than just like me sitting down here right now playing my guitar. Like I kind of want to give something more, more tangible to folks.
Sure. Well, I think the last time I talked to you, you were on the verge of releasing that Bakersfield record.
Yeah.
And it's that again seems like a million years ago because how much content have you put out? How many albums have you actually done in the time since then?
In June, I put out this like the solo record for, and then in September we did put out the trucking record with Lost
Right.
Country. And then I did a lot of work on the Times Changed compilation that came out in December. And we've got this live thing coming out on Friday.
And you have a documentary that got made too, right?
Oh yeah, and the Honky documentary came out in December. So it's kind of like every few months is like, here's a new thing, instead of like, and I'm not knocking anyone that's doing live stream stuff from their house in an effort to like, stay connected and people forget about you. But like for me, it's like if I can do something, every few months that like I can really stand behind and we'll have some legs for a long time, that's kind of been the thinking. And it's been challenging, but it's been fun to do those things. Like, we talked about making this trucking record forever. It's like, when are we going to get the chance, or everyone's home? And then we had a good reason to do it as well. We gave all the money to the Times Change. So yeah. So, I mean, I appreciate the praise for the amount of work, but I feel like I got to do something.
Well, I think it's a good attitude to have. Otherwise, you don't want to just like kind of sort of sit here lamenting the situation you're in, right? And I think that depending on people's life situations and stuff too, it's kind of hard not to at times, right? Because you can't play shows, you can't go to shows, you can't probably even be in the same room with a lot of your band members. I mean, it's just such a strange and ongoing and seemingly never-ending situation, right?
Yeah, we had a little.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna. We had the reprieve of the summer, which was really nice for us here in Manitoba, and we got to play. I don't know, probably played about 15 shows in the summer, and most of them with the band, and that was great. But yeah, we're back to like, I go for walks with one of the guys in the band and pretty often, and kind of see the drummer at a distance, but it's not the same. It's it'll be nice when we can safely get back to it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's something you mentioned earlier too about that compilation and raising funds for Times Changed. Times Changed is obviously a big part of what you do. I mean, just looking at the projects you've done over this time period, there's that project. There is, you've done live streams from there. You have this new album was recorded there, right? So what is your connection to that club? I mean, I know it has a very kind of important place in Winnipeg's music scene, especially for country and roots and folk and that whole sort of umbrella of genres. But what is your connection to it, and why is it so important to you?
I think it's kind of it's kind of a one of a kind place, I think, for me in Canada. And, I didn't grow up here in Winnipeg. And when I started touring, it was 2010. It was kind of like, my older friends or the older guys that have been on the road were kind of like, you always want to play like the best place for your music in the town or the
Yeah,
coolest place, and it's like the Times Change was always like, I never got booked at Times Change when I was touring through my early years. But it was such a great vibe, and it's like the kind of the place where you want to play for the for the most part, the audience there is like respectful of the music and there for the music, and want to hear what you have to offer.
yeah,
It
yeah,
was like, it was like the pinnacle of the dive bar, like 100-seat venue or whatever. And then once we start playing there, it's just there's a real vibe in that old room, man, and it sounds great and it feels great, and people really care about one another and they care about the music. So that's kind of how it started for me. And then, I mean, a few years, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, started working there. Like all of us who were working there at the time were either musicians on the road or married to touring musicians.
yeah,
So,
sure,
like
sure.
a nice little community family there. So it just, and the amount of bands that came through and working sound or working the door, it's just, I don't know, man. It's a really great place. I feel like there's a lot of places similar to the Times Changed in the vibe and size in the United States,
Yeah.
but there's not like that in Canada, I don't think. Not that I've seen.
Well, it's such a standby of Winnipeg too. It's been there for, I mean, under various guises. It's been there for a really long time, and
Heck
it's
yeah.
always had this kind of focus on this sort of quirky, rootsy sort of sound and community and people. I mean, I haven't been there nearly as much as I'd like to. I've definitely seen shows there plenty of
Yeah.
times over the years, but it does feel like every time I've been to a show there, it feels like at least half the audience is regulars, is people
Mhm.
who are so like, intimately familiar with everyone who works there and the venue and the artists. And there definitely seems like, oh, this is a cool community. I almost wish I was part of it. Like it seems very tight knit.
Yeah. It's got that. And I forget what I was going to say. I'm sorry, but um oh yeah, it's the kind of place where you go if you don't go often or you don't know who the band is, it's like you can kind of trust that whoever it is going to be
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, for
The
sure. For
music, the
sure.
band will be good, or there'll be some reason that they're there. And that's like a dependability, reliability that you don't get in a lot of music venues.
It kind of has that vibe, to compare it to a completely different genre of the Albert back in like the late '90s, mid '90s, where you knew there'd be, you go show up any night, there's a punk band, and you probably know
Yeah.
10 people in the audience, and you maybe even know people in the bands, and I would do that often. Just let's go to the Albert. Who's playing? It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I feel
exactly.
like
Yeah.
Time changes the maybe the acoustic version of that.
Yeah, and so you go there. Yeah, I'll know someone there for sure.
Yeah,
I don't know where my friends are tonight, but I know there's a bunch of them that are going to be there watching the band or in the band.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
What's the backstory of this new record then? When was it actually recorded?
On September 15th. So the last night the Times Change was open to the public was Sunday, March 15th. So coming up on a year ago.
Wow.
It was a really weird night. It was a Sunday night big day. There wasn't many people there. Everyone was freaked out. And we left thinking like, okay, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Once
Yeah,
once we flatten this curve, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. And it kind of kept going, and then we kind of paired up with the beer can. Got lucky to have a summer. All of us worked at the club, worked at the beer can.
yeah,
And then we put out the trucking record, and John Scholes, the owner of the club, was like, "You guys need to play here. We need to do a show and do a limited capacity." Before we played, he ended up booking a bunch of shows. Like he was gonna book, I don't know, a few a month. So he had booked a handful of shows for the fall, but we didn't know if that was gonna really happen. There was the imminent closure.
yeah.
So I had the idea, like, we're gonna go do this truck and release show. We'll do like a real tight 2-set show, and I'll have the whole night filmed, and we'll record everything, just in case, to sort of document that night. It's still the one-off. So the Honky Tonky came out in December, which is highlights that whole evening, and then I picked 10 songs. There's 3 full songs in the film. And so we picked 10 for this CD. And again, a few months after the fact, it's like, we might as well put this out. Like
Yeah.
it's like, it's not a conventional recording or like, hey, we're going to go to the club or go to the theater and make this live album and make sure it's really, really good. It's like, there's bumps and bruises on this record. There's nervous energy. It was really strange to be in there with only 40 people and all these rules. It's like, it's the kind of place where you're falling into each other, drunk or not.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it was a different rigid vibe, but it was, the crowd was great, man. It was a really great night, and I'm glad that we did that. So for me, it's like, we bring some attention to what's there and what hopefully will return. So that's
Mhm.
kind of the genesis of the project, and just I think I'm really happy that we did that we documented the whole affair.
Well, it's cool that it's not just any old live record, too, right? I mean, it's a live
Mhm.
record, like you're saying, that has that significance as being that particular show in this crazy time. And hopefully, nothing like this happens again. Like, hopefully, you've captured a moment in time that we can all forget about, but still go back and listen to,
Yeah, and relive that. And that's so I've sort of been labeling it as like the official soundtrack to the
yeah.
honky documentary film. And it's just kind of a, the blown up version of it. And we've released a couple of them just digitally so far, but we've got some CDs for this one again. It's like the significance of the one off is still there. So,
Mhm.
and I know, I'm one who like, and you are too, man,
I
based
am,
on
yeah.
you like a hard copy
I
product.
love a hard copy. Yeah, you need to
Yeah,
get one of
and
those.
me
Yeah.
too. Yeah. So that's kind of what we're counting on is that some people will want it, and it's been response has been good so far.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm glad you did that. I mean, I think that, like we were saying before, too, it's so hard to actually do something completely new because people can't get in the room with each other, and you can't do the band thing
Yeah.
necessarily unless you're doing some kind of remote deal, which
Hmm.
I know people are making that work, and it's cool that people are being creative, but this is like a full on live set with the band that kind of is a rarity at this point, in 2020 2021.
Yeah. I mean, the solo record I put out in June, I did everything right here where I'm sitting, and
Yeah.
everyone else sent their parts in, and we kind of built up like that. And it's still pretty stripped down. It's not there's no drums on the thing, but it's like we still built it like that, and that's kind of fun to do. And I do like records like that, but you cannot replace like the energy of people like having a conversation through music together. And so
Yeah.
the Lost Country records are all done like that, like us playing together. And so it's kind of it's kind of also a nice snapshot. Like this is what the band sounded like in 2020, and who knows what happens next.
Yeah, well, hopefully good things, but
Yeah.
no one knows at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. We've been working on stuff too, like the last 6 months, kind of remotely,
Okay.
like so, maybe by the time we can be together, we can do something together.
Well, just to jump back a bit to the
Yeah.
trucking record, because I feel like, I mean, that thing's been out for a while. Again, my timeline is completely screwed up with everything because it seems like it either came out last year or 10 years ago. I don't even know
Yeah.
anymore. But I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think I've actually talked to you about it in any kind of great detail. That's a theme record, just like the
Oh
Bakersfield
yeah.
one was.
Hmm.
And I mean, so what was the story behind that? Because that's a very specific theme, and I mean, it's even more than the previous one in the sense that this is like trucking songs are it's a niche. It's a very a
Oh
niche within a
yeah.
niche within a
Yeah.
niche, right? So
Yeah.
why trucking songs? What was the genesis of that?
Trucking songs have always played a huge role in the live show, so that
Okay.
at least one, but I like, but usually at least two or three per set, like hard trucking songs. And it is such a niche thing of country music. And it's, I think maybe there's some like a little bit of a cheese element to some of them, but the early era stuff that it's just music that we really love. And it was one of those things, those theme records. I always said that like any respectable traditional honky tonk country music band, especially of the 60s era, all those singers had theme records. They had like
Mm-hmm.
a record about drinking songs, and then a trucking record, a duet record, a tribute record to like one dedicated artist. They have a gospel album, so they check all these boxes, and that sort of disappeared over the years. And it's one of those things. It was like, well, Lost Country's gonna be a band like this. We need to have these things, and the trucking records seem to work out perfectly. It's like that sort of like a gritty honky tonk music that goes over so well at times changed, which
Yeah.
is where we're at most of the time. And they're a big part of the set. So let's get them down and do it. If there was ever going to be a record we were going to give all the money to the times changed, it was going to be like a trucking record or
Makes sense
something
for
like
sure.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, do you think that your kind of interest in doing these theme records and just kind of knowledge of these niche subgenres
Uh-huh.
is in part due to doing the radio show? Because I mean,
Oh
you
yeah.
obviously like listen to a very deep amount of country music, more than I think even the average country player, in the sense
Sure.
that you're digging up all this stuff week after week, right? So well, I guess like how did you get into the kind of crate digging aspect of country? Because it's very easy to be a casual country fan. Obviously,
Hmm.
you play the music, you're more into it, but even still, I mean, you kind of go the next level, right?
Oh, big time. And so I started hosting Boots and Saddle in December of 2016, and I
Yeah.
fancied myself to like I knew about country music. And I did know more than some of the people that still play with me, but not to the degree that is there. And so
Yeah.
I just kind of kept finding more stuff, found some other shows and people I really respected, and they were digging. They had all these great, old songs. I do a lot of research because I like to give some backstory to the material, and then it always just kind of takes you down another path, And so
Sure.
hosting the show and trying to like be entertaining with the program and play stuff that you may haven't heard, it's Boots and Saddle hosting the show, like trying to make that show really good has been responsible for me finding a lot of stuff that I didn't know about before.
Do you have designs on making more themed records like that?
Yeah, like I don't drink anymore. It's been a few years, but I still want to make a record of the sort of the drinking songs,
Well, there's a
I think
lot of
that's
them to choose
a
from. Yeah.
lot of them in country music, and like some of them are so subtle. And so I'd like to do that. I would like to do some of my favorite records, 70s, 80s country records, were these duet records. Like Merle Haggard did duet record with George Jones, and of
Right.
course Willie and Ray Price, all these guys. So Andrew Neville and I had talked about doing that before, just the two of us with maybe my band, and I'd like to do like a full tribute record to one artist. The
That's
Bakersfield
cool.
thing is cool. It's kind of spread. So I mean, these are like, obviously sort of passion projects, but I think it's realistic that we could accomplish a few of those. I would also still like, and I got into the Christmas thing. I did a Christmas episode of Boots and Saddle,
Yeah.
and so hard, couldn't believe it. I was like, every friggin' country singer in the 60s and 70s had a country, like a Christmas record.
At least one, probably,
We
right?
gotta yeah, and some of them too. I was like, we got to do that. So I'd like to do all that stuff. Before that, though, I'd like to put out a couple records of original material.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I
Before
mean, I
we
guess
do
those things are not really time sensitive, right? The theme
Mm-mm.
ones, because you can just pull them out whenever you.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, just for my own interest and kind of nerdiness, I wanted to ask you about Ray Price because I love Ray Price, and I know that whenever I've posted anything Ray Price related on social media, you've always commented like in detail, and I
hmm
definitely appreciate that. I don't really know a lot of people who actively listen to his stuff. I got into him when I kind of inherited a bunch of records from my grandfather when he died.
hmm
Maybe 5 or 6 years ago now, and I fell in love with it. The guy's voice is unbelievable. So
Incredible.
what was your intro to that guy? Because he's something for sure. Like,
Yeah, he was a guy that I knew was just a country singer from the old days when I was a kid, and there was a greatest hits CD my dad had, I think, and so I was familiar with the hits,
yeah,
the early hits, and then again hosting Boots and Saddle and like, oh yeah, Ray Price, and then you find all this other stuff, and so there's a couple of early era records that I just like blew me away. Nightlife is, like it just creates such a vibe, and it's the kind of record you listen to from top to bottom and like forget about time, and I have a few
yeah,
records like that, not all country music, but a few records like that where I just can put them on and listen to them front to back. And I just think he's such a great singer, Ray
yeah.
Price.
His
And he
voice is
did the, like
unbelievable. Yeah.
hardcore honky tonk thing, and then he did a little bit more like uh you know less bar room, more sort of classy, but still hard country music. And then kind of this countrypolitan thing where it got
Mhm.
real lush and he was crossing over into the pop charts. And I don't really love the way those records sound, but there's still country songs underneath there and still like the best singer that ever lived singing them to me.
Yeah,
So I'm a huge, huge fan of him.
that's awesome. Well, yeah, there is that whole. I mean, I think that it's country is such a saying you like country music is such a vague term because they're like you've just said. There's so many different ways it's split up and different genres that have kind of birthed out of the original thing. And so, I mean, like, how much of that do you try to cover over the amount of songs you're choosing? Like for the trucking record, for example, right? You got
Uh-huh.
decades and decades of material to choose from because,
Yeah.
like you said, trucking songs are a big part of country music, and there's so many different styles that kind of fit throughout that, right? Like the Bakersfield thing is a little different because you're focusing on a specific era and location and all
hmm
that. But I mean, trucking songs, drinking songs. How do you decide? How do you decide which ones to put in there? And are you looking for a certain style within that kind of genre of songwriting?
Yeah, definitely. So there was a few that we had been doing for years as a band already. So that was kind of a no-brainer. Like if we do Truckin' Record, we're definitely going to play this one and this one and this one.
Right.
And then, and then one of Neville's tunes, which we recorded before, and one of my songs, which we recorded before, is like, we'll throw those in. And then I sort of asked around. I asked Andrew Neville, I asked Dan Thiessen from the Jake Breaks. These guys really know the trucking stuff, like
Mhm.
deep. So it's like, hey, if I was going to do a Truckin' Record, like what songs should I do? So they both gave me lists. I talked to the band, and then the band had some suggestions as well. And so we just kind of hashed it out to there and settled on 13 of them. And it was like, definitely want to have those like up tempo, in your face ones that are like maybe a little too fast.
Yeah.
and then have like the like Keep on Truckin', like 70s sort of radio truck driving thing, and then something like Phantom 309 where it's just like a narration for 3 minutes. Like
Yeah.
to have that sort of spoken narrated song was definitely something we needed to include if we are going to do it right. At least we thought so.
Cool.
Yeah, and we were happy with the way it turned out. And it's like same thing, man. It's just that's the band. That's how the band sounds. We played those songs live together, and it's like the energy and the raw energy of the trucking sound. So, focusing for sure, like mid to late '60s truck driving stuff. But
Yeah.
the narration thing kind of went on, and it kind of got beaten to death and a little overdone, sometimes a little cheesy. But that's part of it.
Yeah, that goes with the territory, right?
Yeah, definitely. So, we just like, well, we got to own it, and so we did.
For sure, yeah. So, obviously, I don't know. You don't know. No one knows when the pandemic's going to end, if it ends, or what's going to happen here. But what kind of is, you have this record, the one that was recorded at the Times that's coming out. When's it coming out? What's the date?
Friday, March 5th.
Okay, perfect. So by the time this comes out, it'll already be available, which is great.
Perfect.
So, aside from that, what's next for you? I mean, I'm assuming, I figure it's safe to assume that this is still going to go on for a few more months at least, a number of months. So what's kind of in the cards now? Now you have this record. You can't really promote it by playing shows because there are no shows. Mm-hmm. And, I know it's tied to that documentary and to that venue and that time and place, but what's next on the plate for you?
I mean, as far as like this live record, I mean, it'll come out Friday, and then maybe for a month there'll be some light fanfare, and then it will disappear. And we can't all get together and even like live stream at the club right now. Like even I don't know, I don't know if John would be okay with it. Or I don't know if we could fit that many people in and do it right, like make it look and sound good.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm working on a whole bunch of new tunes. So I mean, I guess I don't know if we talked about this last time I was on. Like I was fixing to go to Texas last April and make a record. Okay. Of course, that didn't happen.
For sure.
So I've got all that material, and I'm still going to do that at some point. But until then, it's like I've started working on all these other tunes and working on other music. And Grant Siemens, who's playing guitar with me as often as I can have him, him and I have been working on stuff a lot. So hopefully, cool. Coming close to having like a full, respectable record worth of material. So I would like to sort of assemble the band in the spring if we can. And record somewhere where we can be, spread out and everyone's comfortable and safe and we're not breaking any rules, and record a sort of a different sounding record than what we've been doing, kind of in between the solo record and the Lost Country record, a little bit more low key kind of thing. I think. So I'm hoping to be able to do that this year. And then if we can do that, then there'd be like something there that's, something, okay, what's the next thing to accomplish and the next thing, and then we can maybe put that thing out before the end of the year.
Yeah.
That would be a perfect world for me. Cause I don't think there's any way that we're going to, if we can have a summer like we did last year, that'd be great. But I think that's the most we can hope for,
Yeah, at this point, yeah, for sure.
And if I'm going to be stuck down here, yeah. And if I'm going to be stuck here, I'm going to be working on stuff, it's like, I need to do something, and part of like releasing things and is part of like still feeling connected and still offering something to someone. And it's like, our record is great in your car, and it's, if you're having a shitty day, it's nice in your house. It's like, we're not commanding any kind of attention with introspective lyrics and stuff, it's like, we're just here, just let's have 30 minutes of a good time. And I think that's a valuable service that we can offer. And then maybe this next record is touch on a little bit more, autobiographical themes or something a little more, little different. Don't want to do the same thing over and over again,
Of course, yeah.
Even, so yeah.
No, like I said, this will be out by the time this podcast comes out. That the record will already be released, which is great timing. Awesome. So where can people find it? How does someone get their hands on a copy or get a digital copy of this new album?
They can go to seanburns.bandcamp.com. And that's where I've been running the pre-order CDs there and the digital sales. And you can buy all of the merch there too. All the hard copy stuff is available there. So that's the spot these days. Bandcamp's been so great the last year for folks like me,
They have, yeah.
And it's really inspired a lot of creativity, these Bandcamp Fridays, man. It's like people are, I'll do something. And, I don't know, maybe 100 people buy it, maybe 10 people buy it. It's like, hopefully they dig it and you've done something. You've like offered something,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I guess like obviously people aren't going to record stores or anything right now either. But
yeah, exactly.
So I guess the internet is basically the place to get it at this point, right?
Yeah. I think everyone's just trying to figure out how to do things now.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Just relearn. It's like learning to walk again. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, we're just gonna make music and put it out
Cool. And then if people want to dig back into the catalog, like you said, all the hard copies and stuff are there, the merch on the Bandcamp.
on the Bandcamp page. Yeah.
Is there another source you'd send people to as far as finding out information about potential upcoming shows? Maybe they hear this 6 months down the line and
Yeah.
want to know what you're doing then.
SeanBurns.ca is pretty good. And there's a store there to buy merch as well and buy music. And Boots and Saddle, the show that I
Yep.
host on CKUW, that's also available like on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all that stuff too. And I don't talk too much about myself there, but I usually mention, what's going on.
You
I
play
don't
good
want to.
stuff too. It's a really good show. Like I mean,
Thanks, man.
I have definitely learned a lot of artists that are new to me just from like checking out who is on the list on a certain
Yeah.
episode. I don't necessarily know what I'm listening, but like, oh, this is cool, and then I got to make a note to go back and check who
Yeah,
you
there's
played.
tons
But
of yeah, there's tons of people out there just like me that are making traditional sound and country music, and it's just a matter of finding them. There's a couple shows that I lean on pretty hard on Wednesdays. There's two different shows that are like one's playing only new music and one plays mostly sort of off-cut stuff. So I borrow a lot from those two guys. We got a nice little group going
nice.
on. Yeah.